When did you realize that HR was definitely not your friend? Got pulled into a meeting with 2 HR reps in the middle of my shift. Taken to this really nice boardroom, which was confusing because I was just a grunt, and this is literally floors above where I should ever be. They sat me down and basically said, "What do you have to say for yourself?" Me, still confused, tells them I have no idea what they're talking about. Everyone was really quiet and serious, and I'm scared out of my mind. And they say, "You know what you did. This is cause for termination, blah blah blah." I'm literally thinking this is really excessive for being a few minutes late sometimes. I insist I don't know what's going on. One of them maybe realized something was wrong and flips open a file and says, "You're XX, right?" Turns out they got me mixed up with someone else who has the same name. On the elevator ride down by myself, I was still sweating. Don't know what that other person did, but man, HR does not play. Oh yeah, and nobody said sorry. I should add, this is Canada, where we have a special sorry law where saying sorry doesn't constitute admission of guilt because we all say it so much, so they totally could have apologized. I had the Air Force Office of Special Investigations do that crap to me back in like 2002 or so. I got told the OSI called and wanted me to go over to their office. I got interrogated for about 10 minutes, them accusing me of doing white snow and hanging out with some other guy I barely knew. After me arguing with them for those 10 minutes or so, they finally said, "Aren't you this airman?" He had a super common last name, and I was like, "Yeah, but there's multiple airmen with that last name in my shop alone." Yeah. Turns out they meant a different person completely. They saw my last name and never checked my ID or asked my first name. I had to get right into the investigation because they messed up. I went to HR to report that my team's manager was illegally shorting all of our paychecks. HR's response was to adopt a new company-wide policy addressing the paycheck issue and backpaying most people for a certain amount, and also to frame me for work avoidance. HR and IT disabled part of my login account to a tool we used, and then fired me a few months later after failing to fix the problem and allowing me to actually do my job. They tried to deny my unemployment claim afterwards, told unemployment rep that they had logs showing that I did something to break the tool I don't even have access to break in the first place. They also didn't think to disable my email address in a timely manner, so I was able to back up all of my emails with IT documenting exactly what went down. Unemployment approved my claim and hit them with a major penalty to their insurance. This entire thread will likely hammer home something that I've said in an earlier video. HR is there to defend the company from unnecessary damage from its personnel. Whether the best way to do that is removing you or the person you have a grievance with is more important than any actual justice. I work in Sweden. I had a friend recruited to an identical position as mine. I had to tutor him for a year, given that I have more work-life experience for that gig. He came in earning 1,000 euros a month more than I did. When time came for salary discussions for me, I used this example and my manager tried to pass that along to at least align my salary. The HR partner responded that they didn't want to make that drastic raise because, and I quote, "There might come a time where he and me wouldn't do the same things as now, and if that happens, we can't downgrade his pay, and he would therefore be overpaid. This is because 2 other team members had been demoted and now make manager pay for less work. We do the same job, but they make double of what I do. I got a minor raise that year due to my boss asking the other team members to give up a small share of their annual raises to be able to align my salary. Quite insane that they actually had to do that. Still not anywhere close to being aligned. On Monday comes this year's salary discussion. The madness is to be continued. Delivery-wise, I perform better than they do. They're 10 and 20 years older than me. The friend I mentioned is 1 year younger than me. HR ordered me to downgrade my 3 excellent employee reviews to satisfactory because management didn't recognize their names. I got written up for telling my employees this. HR denied that they told me anything, even though I had the emails from them documenting it. Totally worth it. My employees were excellent and got the raises they deserved. I saw a similar situation. The company has a policy where 10% of the workers had to get bad performance reviews, which meant no raise for that year. What the company didn't take into account is that some teams are small and hyper-specialized. You can imagine what happened next. A bunch of crucial employees quit and that policy was cancelled, but the damage was already done. I fight this every year. Their argument is that part of the job should be going above and beyond the call of duty, so when people do a good job, that's technically satisfactory work, which warrants the same merit increase as everyone else. When I ask what the metrics are for exemplary work, they straight up told me that executive leadership isn't allowing any exemplary ratings this year and that generally nobody should be able to get an exemplary rating. My counter is that hard work should be rewarded to encourage further hard work, and ask if they want to send a message that the company is only willing to encourage the bare minimum. Yes, that's what we prefer. The 3-point scale should just be a 2-point scale, nobody should get a 3. Isn't that some crap? Coworker accidentally backed his company truck into my personal car while it was parked. He alerted me and our local manager immediately. We took photos, filled out the incident report, yada yada yada. Everyone in our office was in agreement about what happened, that it was an honest accident and the company's insurance should cover the cost of fixing my car. Then the HR director got involved. First, he tried to get me to assume liability since it was my personal vehicle that caused the accident. My car was parked in the parking lot and I was inside at my desk when it happened. When I pointed this out, he backed down and said he would file the claim. Next, I got a call from a hostile insurance adjuster from my company's insurance demanding that I provide my insurance information or they'd be pursuing legal action. It turns out the HR director had filed the claim saying that I'd run into the parked work truck with my car and tried to flee the scene, but was witnessed by a coworker who reported me. I informed the adjuster what had actually happened and emailed her the photos and signed incident reports and witness statements that we'd filled out, and she changed her tune pretty quickly and said she'd get back to me. The next day, I get a settled agreement from HR asking me to accept $1,100 for repairs and to sign a form releasing the company from further responsibility. I'd only just dropped my car off at the body shop and hadn't even gotten the estimate back yet. I declined and was told that I either had to accept their offer or be out of luck. At this point, I reached out to my own insurance and told them what happened. As I went through the sequence of events, I could hear my agent getting almost giddy about the blatantly illegal tactics HR had tried on me. In the end, they processed my claim and pursued my own company's insurance through subrogation. He also mentioned that they would probably be seeking additional damages due to falsification of statements in the initial claim. You don't F with USAA. In the end, the damage ended up costing over $4,000 to fix, but I didn't have to pay a cent, not even my deductible. I don't know if the HR director experienced any consequences, but there was a comment in our finance VP's year-end report about needing to reduce extraneous costs due to reporting delays and inaccuracies in liability claims. The HR payroll manager at a small hospital I worked at had a bad habit of not paying the sign-on bonus that was paid out incrementally in 3 payments through the course of a year, and sign-on bonuses for picking up extra shifts. After repeated requests to be belatedly compensated, I took it to corporate, who addressed my issue immediately. A couple of weeks later, I was terminated on what amounted to a technicality where I forgot my badge one shift, and my relief was late to take over sitting with a patient, causing me to receive more points against me than if I'd called out for that shift. When I was called in to receive my notification, the director of nursing was shocked, but ultimately there wasn't much she could do. I'll revise my earlier statement. 90% of HR's job is controlling damage to the company. The other 10% is dishing out vengeance when they're brought to task for their evil behavior. Overall, I've been able to get along with HR departments with one exception. I was working a help desk job for a company during college, and the head of HR called in for help. He was making an Excel spreadsheet and couldn't figure out how to make a formula do what he wanted. I offered to come and take a look as we were in the same building, and he told me I couldn't because the spreadsheet was full of confidential information. So I asked then if he could describe exactly what he was trying to do without giving away any specific information, and he told me what he was trying to do was confidential. So I clarified that he wanted me to tell him how to do something, but I couldn't see it and he wouldn't even tell me what he was trying to do. At that point, he agreed that I wouldn't be able to assist him since he couldn't divulge anything. As soon as we hung up, he called my boss to complain that I was useless. That there is a top-tier Class A moron. You have my sympathy. They already said it was the head of HR. Calling him a Class A moron is redundant. HR hired consultants to run morale-building employee input sessions. Basically saying, we're not from the company. You can tell us all the things you don't like about working here and would like to see changed, and we'll put it all into a report for management. Don't worry, everything's anonymous. We just need material for our report, and you guys get to have your say in improving things around here. Turns out HR and the consultants recorded all the sessions and played the highlights for management. People were disciplined for criticizing the company or their immediate superiors, and any shred of faith or trust in management that the employees may have had was instantly incinerated. Managers now complain that they don't know what's going on in their teams because nobody tells them anything. I wonder why. I worked at a smallish company that grew big enough to hire an HR person. Her office was down from mine, so in the mornings I'd swing by and say hi. That turned into grabbing a cup of coffee together, then into having a pastry and talking about life. I found that if I mentioned someone's name in passing, a few minutes later she would spill the beans about that person's life. what work issues they had, health issues, family issues, and other things. I learned really quick any issues I had not to take them to her. She made it about 6 months before she got fired. Damn, this was like the HR supervisor of my former company. She didn't have any formal training in HR but still got the job because of connections. She'd tell anyone she was close to confidential details about certain employees like their health and family issues. She would also divulge information that only the management should know, like business negotiations, and it was all voluntarily done. Anyone with formal training who worked under her never lasted a year. Last I heard, they finally hired an HR manager she would report to. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. I asked my boss for a desk phone with a speakerphone function because sometimes I need it at work to conference people on the phone with people in my office. We'd had these old yellow phones, so he told me to make a request to him and CC our office manager, and he'd send it to the HR department of our region via email. So I put forth a nice email outlining what I'm requesting and why I need it for HR's request. My office manager replies all and asks HR, per his request, should I order the phone through the same channels I've used before or is there a new policy? HR responded completely livid. She demanded to know why I needed this phone, it was in the email, and then accused my office manager of going behind HR's back and ordering phones before without approval. My office manager told my boss, who called HR and chewed her out, and I could hear yelling. My boss came out of his office and yelled at me. See what you've caused? He was fired up, but I know he didn't mean anything maliciously by it. I just laughed. HR had to apologize to office manager for accusations. Turns out, after everyone yelled their fricking lungs out for an hour, the speakerphone I needed was literally free and we had boxes of them in storage. I had it for a month before HR rolled out fancy new phones that were actually expensive and convoluted, requiring training to set up and use. At the company picnic, we had to wear fricking name tags, and I'd never met HR lady face to face, and she came up to me and said, "Oh, haven't we met? What's your name?" And I was trying to hide my name tag, but she read it and didn't seem happy to see me. I never understood why HR had to okay the purchases at my old company too. My coworker ordered stuff for our department, and one of the few things she put down was Kleenex, which our boss said was fine because we were running low. HR sees it and sends a long email to both my coworker and boss saying we were wasting money and had to cancel the order because there were some in the storage cabinet. To be fair, none of us knew, and that cabinet was located outside our department room. Our boss looked through the purchases before ordering, but for some reason HR was always strict and wanted to know why we were purchasing certain things. We need those binders for our project. What other reason would we buy them? And my last real job before striking out on my own, I had an exit interview with the HR lady, who was actually just someone who was friends with the company president, who was filling in because the actual HR lady with a degree in HR and everything quit. A lot of people at this place quit, actually. It was a terrible place to work with out-of-touch management and delusions of grandeur limping along building websites for a business niche that was mostly old people who thought the internet was magic. During the exit interview, she asked why I was leaving. I told her I liked my co-workers a lot but hated the company. She got this exasperated look and got genuinely upset and told me she had been getting that same line from everyone else who quit and had their exit interview recently. It boggled my mind that they could hear the same thing over and over again from so many people putting in their time until they could go on to something better and not stop to think that they should change something. I mean, this might be the closest thing to an honest and decent HR rep that we've heard of in this thread so far, but it took someone not formally trained in HR to actually get it. HR person used her position to collect intel to get people she didn't like fired. Office survey. I put in some honest opinions of a member of my team. They were fair and honest criticisms of a system which was not working as designed. I had little contact with the system, but the whole thing seemed reasonable to me. I was in fact demoted for this, a position was created above me, and a colleague who was my equal was to be my manager. The position didn't exist before. This happened the same week my husband died, and the management felt like crap because of the timing. But still, on my return to work, I was basically called out for criticizing the same system in a whole company meeting, and it was explained how X system should and did work, and anyone who thought it didn't work was stupid. Cut to 2 years later. Person above me quits, partly because they're scared to tell company that anything has gone wrong because of how I was treated, and they have to promote me to that position because it now exists according to the rules and I'm the only one who can do it. Again, in a whole company meeting, they admit X system isn't working and we're having a consultation to find out why. I laughed. I couldn't help it. I had to leave the room before it turned into hysteria. One of our departments shut down at noon thanks to an HVAC issue. Building management needed to move cubicles and pull out a chunk of drop ceiling, so the manager took them all out to the bar for a team-building exercise. Everyone in the department arrived the next morning to a final notice in lieu of termination on their desk that cited drinking on the job and time theft. The manager had an extra special third for improper use of a company credit card. None of what they'd done was against company policy, so the manager's boss, a vice president, called HR and told them that whatever newbie had written them to back the heck off. HR instead forwarded over a brand new policy manual and told the VP to make sure all the write-ups were signed and returned by the end of the day. The VP goes up the chain to his boss, the CEO. The CEO hadn't even seen it before, let alone authorized it. HR doesn't want to back down even when the CEO calls them. Sure, he hadn't authorized it, but he had asked them to consider revamping it back in March. This was the glorious revamp. They'd gone back to square one and completely rewritten it. It's full of best practices, industry standard rules, and easy-to-understand language. Oh, and they'd been enforcing it since May, so it would probably be best for him to just sign off on it, and any concerns he found could be incorporated in a future revision. Yeah, no. The CEO didn't make it past the first page before finding a contract law violation. Page 3 had a federal labor law violation, page 4 would make the NLRB angry, and the section on PTO would get them sued 6 ways to Sunday. The head of the HR was asked to resign. When she refused, she was fired. Okay, this lady is a champion of the worst kind. Fires a whole department without approval, fights VP, fights the CEO, gets asked to resign, says F you, I'm staying, and then gets fired. No fear at any single point. After 4 years on the job, I was given a first and final warning for asking why the heck HR was behind a locked door and now dominated over half the first floor, filled with new furniture that was unused after 6 months. Meanwhile, my chair was taken by another employee and I was told to use the chair without padding. An executive from another department heard my complaint, stole one of the unused chairs from the HR expansion and gave it to me, explaining that if I'd done it, I'd have been fired. She did it, daring them to fire her. Good on the exec. After doing this entire thread, I'm beginning to feel like Michael Scott was completely justified in his mistreatment of Toby Flenderson in The Office. Obviously, there are probably HR reps who are fine, but if the only way to care for your employees is to fight the people who claim they look after them, broken system. Not HR, but heed my warning, don't type anything into your work computer that you wouldn't say directly to your company's HR person's face. I've seen people had cases built against them for poor work and ultimately fired for the crap they say over Skype. I work in a mobile environment and have a company-issued tablet, and I bring my own tablet to work too. Why? Because company stuff stays on a company tablet and personal stuff on my own tablet. I don't even check personal emails with my company tablet. It's like in TV shows when the company goes through company emails and they see all the crap people have said about them or management through company emails. I've seen enough comments on Reddit of that happening, and I always ask, who the frick talks shot about a company on company email? I worked in a warehouse that regularly concealed the shipping of dangerous goods to save money. This went on for years. As time went on, I bubbled up through the ranks and was eventually made manager of the warehouse. I outright refused to ship anything anywhere until we started to claim our dangerous goods shipments properly. Their solution? The boss started to sign his name instead. This went on for a few weeks until HR found out. They obviously knew how much trouble the president could have got into. So next time a shipment had to go out, they got the newest guy in the warehouse to start signing his name instead, claiming they were training him how to do paperwork, but the poor kid had no idea. So when the driver showed up to pick up his shipment, I told him that there were a bunch of dangerous substances concealed in the shipment. So he refused it and left. I got told later that my actions were damaging to the company image and it had to stop. I told HR exactly what was going on and how I would not be a part of it. Less than a week after that, I was removed from my position due to company restructuring and laid off. Some of the most crooked crap I've ever seen. My rough estimates ballpark the money they saved at about $250,000 per year. Scumbags, the whole family. I reported inappropriate advances to HR at a large international company when I was 21. They notified my harasser, an older VP, before I'd even made it back to my desk. I was fired a few days later despite an excellent performance review the week before he propositioned me. Upon giving 2 weeks' notice, I got this stupid rant about millennial snowflakes, how we can't take the stress of a real job, and how we think we're so important and unique. But in reality, the only thing that would happen is that they'd find another engineer to fill in for me, and things would be like I never existed. After the initial shock, I replied with, "You're absolutely correct. Me staying on or not is meaningless. Consider my resignation immediate from this moment. Please give me the paperwork to sign." A skilled nursing facility I worked at got bought out by another company. New management comes in and starts cracking the whip and basically doing everything they can to decrease morale. What happens is predictable. People that have been employed in the building for 20 years start quitting left and right. Patient ratios start going up while more work is required. They lose so much staff that they resort to using a medical staffing agency, and the place has about half the staff on payroll to actually function independently. That management team has all left, but the effects are still withstanding. HR was the boss's sister, and the boss was a narcissist. The sister and HR had very little actual life experience because they both came from a big pharma family and never had a sense of what working a real job was like. The boss could do no wrong in his sister's eyes, so complaining about anything just got you gaslit. I'm glad I'm not there anymore. During an exit interview with my last job, HR asked me where I was going to go next. HR, so what's the name of the company you're moving to next? I'm not really comfortable disclosing that. Are you sure? It would really help us out. I'd rather not say. It's company policy that you need to tell us. I said no, and if you continue further, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. They gave me the shocked Pikachu face. I told my old boss this after I left, and he was absolutely shocked. HR have no right to know anything about the next place you're moving to. It's literally none of their business, but they tried to press it out of me anyway. More than likely to call them up and talk crap about me. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.